Shot.
Yeah, boy.
Have you ever been wandering around the different regions and outward and run across giant clouds of green smoke? This fog-like substance is known as corruption, and spending a few minutes inside it will inflict you with some nasty effects. At around 25% corruption, you will become tainted, which makes you 100% more hungry and 25% weaker to lightning damage. At about 50% corruption, you will become corrupted, which makes you 100% more hungry and 50% weaker to lightning damage. But you will also gain 15% decay resistance and a 15% damage bonus to decay and frost attacks. At around 75% corruption, you will gain a ton of effects on your character. Plus 100% hunger, negative 50% lightning resistance, negative 50% lightning damage, negative 10% attack speed, negative 30% physical resistance, negative 30% impact resistance, and you gain a chance to spawn a corruption spirit that will try to kill you. You also get some bonuses though, such as 15% decay resistance and 50% decay damage, and a plus 15% frost damage. Lastly, we have 100% corruption, which will almost kill the player. You get 45 raw damage, 45 physical damage, 30 impact damage, and an AoE attack that hurts you and nearby players. Oh, and you're inflicted with doomed, haunted, and extreme poison. It lowers your corruption by 90% though, so hey, nice trade-off? So as you can see, corruption is quite a big deal, and now that Definitive Edition is out, it is even more dangerous than it was before. You become corrupted much faster, and the zones are in many more areas than before. Staying in that green smoke for long can really hurt you, and it may be frustrating that you have to stay out of so many areas on your map. Well, no longer. Let's take a look at 7 ways you can deal with corruption and get you through those nasty zones. The simplest way to deal with corruption is to craft and carry around different potions. Some cure a certain amount of corruption, while others just give you more defense against it. Here are 4 really good ones that might come in handy. Sanctifier potions are the easiest to get your hands on, as almost all alchemists will sell 1 or 2 of them. They only lower your corruption by negative 20% though, so it's better to craft them with any elemental particle for 3 purity potions. These ones are way better as you get 3 of them, and it decreases the corruption by negative 50%. Quartz potions only take killing Boozu, and will give you more resistance to the smoke itself. Then we have an Innocence potion that can be difficult to get, but gives you corruption resistance and decreased corruption over time. It honestly can be pretty scary to deal with corruption at first, because these potions seem hard to craft. However, 3 of them are some of the easiest potions to get in the game. Remember the recipes or try to buy them if you can. They will help out immensely and let you focus on combat rather than slowly being eaten away by death itself. While we are on the topic of crafting, there are a number of foods that can help as well. Cooked Boozu meat gives you corruption resistance and only requires killing Boozu. Cheesecake does wonders for your character as well as corruption resistance. That food item takes 2 fresh cream, an egg, and sugar. Plus, who doesn't love a slice of cheesecake? Then we have Bagatelle, which provides corruption resistance for only 2 crawberry jam, sugar, and fresh cream. Heck, even fresh cream itself gives corruption resistance. Unfortunately, crafting these foods is still mainly useful in the Antique Plateau since the Boozu required for them are over there. But it will surely come in handy when you attempt to clear the giant train dungeon. Kill a couple of Boozu and you have some nice tasty treats that will help you along the way. While you're in the Antique Plateau, you might as well stop by Surge Battleborn in Harmattan. He can be found in the training ground area, and for only 100 silver you can grab Metabolic Purge. This is a passive skill that will always be active on your character regardless of how many times you die or how many effects you have on your character. It simply gives you 10% corruption resistance. It's a very easy skill to gloss over, but immensely helpful if corruption is giving you trouble, and you don't want to become defiled as quickly. Simply get 100 silver, which is a very small amount of money in Outward, and buy it from this guy. Very nice thing to have for certain caves and dungeons, since you might not exactly understand them yet and may have to spend quite some time wandering around in corruption. This backpack is one of the better backpacks in Outward. Not only is it really cool looking, but it offers you an additional 10% corruption resistance. Not good enough for you? Well, turns out Boozu hide is pretty light, as this backpack does not make your dodge slower. You can wear this thing all the time and will never need to drop it for boss fights. Getting it can either be really easy or really hard. Mostly just depends on where you look for the materials. We first need a primitive satchel, which can be crafted with 2 hide and 1 linen cloth. Kill hyenas for some easy hide. Next, we need 3 scaled leather. Now, the Soraborian Caravaner sells these quite often, but I don't think he will ever have all 3 pieces at one time. So we need to find a better source. I personally like to head to the swamp region, called the Hollow Marsh, and kill low-level dinosaurs. The larger ones are guaranteed drops, but at the beginning, those guys are quite difficult, so Stegosaurs are a pretty good way to go. You can also go farm them from shell horrors at the Cabal of Wind Temple in Enmerker Forest, since you don't actually need to fight anything there, and can get a buttload of good materials. If you're unfamiliar with that place by now, go there. It is one of the most important dungeons in the entire game, and basically just uses a lever to blow up all your enemies. Now craft the satchel with 3 leather hide to get a scaled satchel. No dodge interference on this guy either, but the Boozu offers quite a bit more. Now we just need to craft 3 Boozu hide with the scaled satchel to get the Boozu hide backpack. Killing Boozu is the best way to get the hide if you didn't figure that out already, and they aren't too difficult. Just move in on them and be ready to dodge. You should be able to understand their attacks pretty quickly after watching for a bit, and easily take them down. This backpack is a really nice item since anyone can wear it, and in the grand scheme of things, it's not hard to get. Plus, you get to wear the face of a buffalo on your back, and it's nice to know that someone's always watching my back. When Definitive Edition released, one of the major changes to the game was with the armor. Some of it got resistance buffs, while others gained extra barrier stats. Another thing that many armor sets got is corruption resistance. The Tenebris set in particular is amazing with 15% corruption resistance. This is a fantastic mage set that can easily be crafted by heading to the blacksmith in Levant. She will craft it for you if you give her about 400 silver and 9 Hackmanite. Each piece is a different price and will take 1 day to craft individually. Hackmanite is found by mining mana crystals, of which are all over the Conflux Mountain and Chersonese. There are a couple of other sets in this game that offer corruption resistance, so look out for that stat on different pieces. One other thing you might want to watch out for is armor that increases the speed at which you get corrupted. Horror armor in particular is pretty bad in this department, as it raises your corruption intake by 15%. Don't use this stuff if you hate corruption, but sometimes you can use this stuff to your advantage. The horror armor can be used to make an amazing corruption build since it basically makes it really easy to become corrupted. So watch out for the corruption stat when you find new armor pieces. They may either hurt or help you depending on how you want to play in corruption zones. This skill can be learned from the Hex Mage over by the Ley Line in Harmattan. It requires you to use one of your 3 skill points on this skill tree, but that is not really a bad idea. Even if you go melee and outward, the Hex skill tree offers amazing perks. The main idea behind it is that you never have any burnt health, mana, or stamina. Killing enemies around you decreases this burnt mechanic on your character and allows you to heal to full health or cast magic with full mana instead of half. It's amazing. But the perk we're talking about today is called Cleanse. Taking this skill allows you to do some interesting things that revolve around corruption. It requires a mana stone to activate, as well as you being 50% corrupted. Using it will then give you a dark stone, of which you need to cast a very strong blood sigil. It brings down your corruption by 30%, making it useful for heavy corruption areas. The problem is, you will receive 65 decay damage and become inflicted with extreme bleeding upon activation. Not great, but pairing up the correct armor set will allow you to avoid most of that damage, and bandages quickly heal up bleeding. I hope you know about bandages by now, but if not, they're crafted with linen cloth. Cleanse is a very interesting skill because it makes corruption super easy to get rid of. However, it makes you be careful with the skill since you will need a lot of health to cast it, and doing so in the middle of a fight will surely kill you. So don't go thinking this is a bad skill just because it hurts you. You can use this quite often if you carry around the correct items, and it basically solves corruption for you. Just another way of dealing with corruption that isn't quite as straightforward as craft potion to fix problem. This is a very different approach to corruption. I mentioned earlier that the different corruption levels can actually buff some of your damage, and to quite an extreme when it comes to decay. Here's my advice. Consider living in Defilement. What do I mean by that? Well, it just so happens you can use decay weapons in Outward, and pair this with the 75% corruption level. At that point, you get 50% more decay damage, letting you deal massive damage to your enemies. Pair this with certain armor sets and weapons, and you have a Mega Bomb ready to go off on every single attack you make. Obviously, this is much different than just getting rid of the corruption levels. You will need to watch out for that reddish spirit that can appear, and lightning attacks are also going to instantly kill you. Maybe not the best way to play for a first playthrough in Outward, but since Definitive Edition has made corruption appear all over the place in the game, it has never been easier to use. And if you want to simply walk around with no debuffs just to get corrupted before a fight, sleep in this thing. It's called a Scourge Cocoon, and will raise your corruption level while you sleep inside it. Negative 5% stamina cost and less burnt mana while sleeping isn't half bad either. You will need Occult Remains, Horror Chitin, and 2 Weber's Eggs to craft 2 of them. But man, is it mean looking. I would seriously be afraid of someone willing to take a nap inside of this fleshy beast. Sadly, this guy can't be picked up, but he's probably the most unique scent in Outward and can come in handy right before a boss fight. Maybe give the evil side of this world a chance, and see if corruption can make the game any easier for you. Never know until you try it. I want to add one more tactic for dealing with corruption that could potentially top the rest of the things I've mentioned in this video. Enchantments. Filter is a really good enchantment to look out for, as it can be placed on a ton of armor sets and adds extra corruption resistance to the set you enchant. A cool thing you can do is grab the Merton's Skeleton set from Cierzo. This is an Easter egg type costume that you can enchant with Filter for some odd reason. And this is super helpful because the Merton set weighs nothing. It is 0 weight and can have a nice enchantment on it for running through corruption zones. Consider bringing along this cool costume just for corruption heavy areas. Not that useful for people using heavy armor that weighs too much to take off, but it could definitely help out others wearing light armor. I personally never really do this much, but it could be a really useful backup set to throw in your bag just in case. Well guys, hopefully this video was helpful, and now you understand a lot more about dealing with corruption and how it even works in the first place. There are definitely some other foods, potions, and items in Outward that I was unable to mention in this guide. Pay attention to everything you pick up just in case it can help you out later in a really foggy area. Consider leaving a like if you enjoyed the video or found it helpful, and I will see you in the next one.